I orchestrated an elaborate scheme to make my husband fall in love with me by studying everything about him for 6 months and strategically engineering situations where we'd randomly bond over shared interests, except none of it was random, and I confessed the entire manipulation during my wedding vows in front of 200 guests, including his entire family. I spent half a year researching his hobbies, memorizing his favorite bands, learning about his career field, befriending his friends, and carefully curating my entire personality to be his perfect match, and it worked flawlessly until I stood at that altar and decided to come clean about every calculated move I'd made to win him over. His face went through about 17 different emotions in 30 seconds while our guests didn't know whether to laugh or gasp, and now 3 years later, he still brings it up at dinner parties as either the most romantic or most psychotic thing anyone's ever done for love, depending on his mood that day. I'm writing this because I just told the full story to our couples therapist, and she looked at me like I was absolutely unhinged but also slightly impressed, and I need the internet to tell me if I'm a criminal mastermind or just a woman who knew what she wanted and went after it with the intensity of a military operation. My name is Sophie, and I need to start by saying I'm not a stalker. I'm a strategic planner. There's a difference. I first saw Jake Henley when I was 23 years old at a mutual friend's housewarming party. He walked into the kitchen where I was refilling my drink, and I swear to God it was like one of those cheesy movie moments where everything goes into slow motion and angelic music plays. He was tall, 6 feet 2 inches, dark hair, these intense green eyes, and he was wearing a vintage band t-shirt and jeans that fit perfectly. He grabbed a beer from the cooler, said, "Excuse me," as he reached past me and smiled. I was in love. Immediately. Stupidly. Completely. He didn't notice me at all. Why would he? I was just another person at a crowded party. He spent the night talking to his buddies about fantasy football and some work project. I spent the night pretending to be engaged in other conversations while actually eavesdropping on everything he said. By the end of the night, I had learned. His name was Jake. He worked in renewable energy engineering. He was obsessed with the Portland Trail Blazers. His favorite band was The National. Just gotten out of a long-term relationship 3 months ago. He was looking to adopt a dog. He hated cilantro. Overheard him complaining about the guacamole. I went home that night and did what any rational person would do. I created a comprehensive research file. I'm not proud of this, but I'm not ashamed either. I knew what I wanted. He was it. And I wasn't going to leave it to chance. The research phase. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a Jake Henley expert. I found his LinkedIn, learned about his career trajectory, what projects he worked on, what professional organizations he belonged to. I joined 2 of those organizations. I found his Instagram, public account, not creepy, just observant. Studied every post. Learned he hiked every weekend, volunteered at an animal shelter, played in a recreational soccer league, and went to a lot of indie concerts. I found his Spotify through a friend of a friend connection. Made note of every playlist. Discovered he was really into the war on drugs, Bon Iver and Fleet Foxes. Started listening to all of them obsessively. His Facebook was more locked down, but I could see his tagged photos. Noticed he went to the same coffee shop every morning, Groundwork Coffee on Division Street. Noticed he was always wearing Trailblazers gear. Noticed his friend group overlapped significantly with mine through our mutual friend Tyler. I learned he'd played soccer in college. That he'd studied environmental engineering at Oregon State. That he'd grown up in Bend. That his parents owned a bakery there. I learned he'd been dating his ex-girlfriend, Melissa, for 5 years. They'd broken up because she wanted to move to New York for a job and he wanted to stay in Portland. He was clearly not over it yet. Several of his Instagram posts had sad boy energy. I learned everything there was to learn without actually talking to him. And then I planned my approach. The coincidental encounters. Step 1. Become a regular at Groundwork Coffee. I started going there every morning. Same time Jake went, 7:15 a.m. I'd order my coffee, switched from my usual vanilla latte to black coffee because I noticed Jake always ordered black coffee and I needed to seem low maintenance and cool, sit at a table with my laptop, and work remotely. For the first week, he didn't notice me. I was just another person in a crowded coffee shop. Week 2, I made sure to be wearing my Oregon State hoodie. I didn't go to Oregon State. I bought it specifically for this purpose. When Jake walked in and saw it, he did a double take. "Hey, did you go to State?" he asked. "My brother did." I lied smoothly. "I went to U of O, but I root for State."
Nice.
"I graduated from State in 2015.
Cool.
"What did you study?" "Environmental engineering." "You?" "Marketing." "But I work in renewable energy now." "Account management." This was true. I'd switched jobs 1 week after the party specifically to work in renewable energy. I took a slight pay cut. "Worth it." His face lit up. "No kidding? What company?" I told him. His company worked with my company frequently.
Small world, he said.
Not that small, I thought. I made it small. We chatted for few more minutes. He introduced himself as Jake. I pretended I didn't know his name.
We shook hands.
He said, "See you around," and I watched him leave, heart pounding. Step 1, complete. The friend group infiltration. Step 2, become part of his social circle. I went to Tyler, our mutual friend who'd hosted the party, and suggested we hang out more. Tyler and I had been casual friends, but I upgraded us to regular hangout friends. I made sure I was invited to every group event. Game nights? I was there. Group hikes? Signed up. Bar trivia? I studied current events and pop culture for hours to make sure I could contribute. Birthday parties? Never missed one. And because Tyler's friend group overlapped with Jake's friend group, Jake was at most of these events. I made sure to be friendly, but not too eager. Funny, but not trying too hard. Interested in the group, but not obviously interested in him. At a group hike 3 weeks after the coffee shop encounter, I mentioned I was thinking about adopting a dog. "You should come volunteer at the shelter with me sometime," Jake said. "It's a great way to figure out what kind of dog you want." "That would be amazing. I'd love that." 2 days later, we were at the animal shelter together. I'd researched dog breeds extensively. I knew which ones he liked, mutts, especially lab mixes. I made sure to gravitate toward those dogs. We spent 2 hours playing with puppies and talking about our lives. He told me about his ex-girlfriend. I sympathized, but didn't overstep. He told me about his job frustrations. I asked intelligent questions because I'd spent hours learning about renewable energy policy. He told me about his family. I shared carefully curated stories about my family that would make me seem relatable and wholesome. By the end of that day, we'd exchanged numbers. Step 2, complete. The strategic personality curation. Here's where it gets intense. Over the next 3 months, I became Jake's perfect woman. Not by changing who I was fundamentally, but by highlighting the parts of myself that would appeal to him and downplaying the parts that wouldn't. He loved indie music. I became an indie music enthusiast. I already liked some of those bands casually, but I deep dived into his favorites. Learned the lyrics. Listened to interviews with the band members so I could discuss their artistic evolution. Suggested we go to concerts together. He was passionate about environmental issues. I became passionate too. I read books about climate change. I started composting. I joined a community garden. I could discuss carbon offset strategies and renewable energy policy with impressive depth. He played recreational soccer. I joined a women's league and asked him for tips on improving my game. I played soccer in high school, so I wasn't starting from scratch, but I definitely played up my need for his coaching. He loved hiking. I bought expensive hiking gear and suggested new trails every weekend. I researched the trails beforehand so I could point out interesting features and wildlife. He was a Trailblazers fanatic. I became a Trailblazers fan. I learned the players, the stats, the history. I bought a Damian Lillard jersey. I suggested we watch games together. He valued authenticity and low-maintenance attitudes. I made sure to always seem effortlessly cool. Never high maintenance. Never dramatic. Always up for anything. Always chill. Was I manipulating him? Kind of. Was I being dishonest? Maybe. But here's the thing, I genuinely did like all these things. I just liked them more because he liked them. And I made sure he knew I liked them. The key was making it all seem natural. Like we just happened to have incredibly similar interests. Like we were soulmates who'd found each other by chance. It wasn't chance. It was strategy. The relationship launch. For months after that first coffee shop conversation, Jake asked me out officially. We were at a group bonfire on the coast. We'd been sitting next to each other, talking about everything and nothing, and as the night wound down and people started leaving, we stayed. I really like hanging out with you, he said. I really like hanging out with you too. I feel like we have so much in common. Like, everything I'm into, you're into. It's kind of amazing. I know. It's like we're on the same wavelength. Or like, I studied you like you were my dissertation topic, but sure, wavelength works. Can I take you to dinner? Like a real date. I'd love that. We had our first kiss that night on the beach. It was perfect, romantic, everything I'd imagined for 6 months. We dated for 2 years. It was genuinely great. Yes, I'd engineered our initial connection, but the relationship that developed was real. We had real conversations, real compatibility, real love. He met my family. I met his. We moved in together. We adopted a dog, a lab mix named Moose. We built the life. And then he proposed. On a hike, at the top of a mountain, with a ring he'd hidden in his backpack. It was perfect. I said yes. Obviously. And then I started planning the wedding. And I made a decision that I probably should have reconsidered but was too committed to back out of. I was going to confess everything in my vows. The wedding day confession. Our wedding was beautiful. October in wine country. 200 guests. Outdoor ceremony, with a vineyard in the background. String quartet. Perfect weather. I wore an ivory dress with lace sleeves. Jake wore a navy suit that made his eyes look even more green. We'd written our own vows. He went first. He talked about how he felt like the luckiest man alive. How he'd never believed in soulmates until he met me. How everything in his life made more sense with me in it. How he couldn't imagine a future without me. It was beautiful.
Sweet.
Earnest. Then it was my turn. I looked at him, at his face full of love and trust, at the 200 people watching us, at his parents in the front row dabbing their eyes with tissues. And I said, Jake, I need to confess something. And I need you to know this comes from a place of absolute love and devotion. He looked confused. So did everyone else. When we met, really met, that first time at Tyler's party, I knew immediately that I wanted to marry you. Not in a casual he seems nice way. In a this is my person way. And I decided I wasn't going to let the universe decide whether we ended up together. I was going to make it happen. People were starting to murmur. Jake's expression was shifting from confusion to dawning realization. So I did something that's either incredibly romantic or completely psychotic, depending on your perspective. I orchestrated our entire relationship. The murmuring got louder. I started going to your coffee shop at the same time you did. I wore my Oregon State hoodie on purpose because I'd seen on your LinkedIn that you went there. I joined your friend group deliberately. I volunteered at the animal shelter because you mentioned it. I learned everything about renewable energy because you work in that field. I became a Trailblazers fan. I learned all your favorite bands. I planned every coincidental, shared interest. Jake's mouth was hanging open. For 6 months before we officially started dating, I studied you. I researched you. I curated my entire personality to be your perfect match. And it worked, because here we are. Someone in the audience gasped. I think it was his mother. Now, before you run screaming, I grab his hand, which he'd started to pull away. I need you to know that everything that came after was real. Yes, I engineered our meeting and our early connection. But I fell in love with the real you. And you fell in love with the real me. The me who genuinely loves hiking and indie music and soccer, and you. I didn't fake who I am. I just strategically highlighted the parts of myself that I knew you'd love. I could see him processing this. See the wheels turning. And I'm confessing this now, in front of everyone, because I don't want to start our marriage with this secret. I want you to know the full truth. That I wanted you so badly, I was willing to become a temporary crazy person to get you. That I saw you and decided you were mine and made it happen. I took a breath. Jake Henley, you are the love of my life. You're my best friend. You're the person I want to adventure with forever. And yes, I might have manipulated fate a little bit to make this happen. But I don't regret it for a second. Because you're worth it. The silence was deafening. Then Jake started laughing. Not angry laughing. Not nervous laughing. Genuine, full body. Can't believe this is happening laughing. Are you serious right now? He said. You're telling me, on our wedding day, that you stalked me? I prefer strategically pursued. Stalking sounds creepy. Sophie. This is insane. This is the most insane thing I've ever heard. I know. But do you still want to marry me? He looked at me for a long moment. The entire wedding held their breath. Then he grinned. Fuck it.
Yes.
If you went to that much trouble, I'd be an idiot to say no now. The crowd erupted. Half laughing, half shocked, all entertained. We finished our vows, his revised version. I guess I'm marrying a criminal mastermind, but she's my criminal mastermind. We kissed. We got married. And we've been telling that story at parties ever since. The aftermath. It's been 3 years since the wedding. 3 years of Jake bringing up the time you confessed to stalking me in your wedding vows at literally every social gathering. Some people think what I did was romantic. A woman who knew what she wanted and went after it. A strategic genius who played the long game and won. Other people think I'm unhinged. That I manipulated him. That our entire relationship is built on lies. Jake's opinion changes depending on his mood. When he's feeling affectionate, he calls me his beautiful psycho and says it's the most romantic thing anyone's ever done. He says he loves that I wanted him that badly, that I was willing to put in that much effort. When he's annoyed with me, like when I reorganize his closet without asking or when I plan our entire vacation without his input, he says this is very on brand for the woman who orchestrated an elaborate scheme to make me fall in love with her. His sister thinks it's hilarious. She was the one who told me half the information about him in the first place, though she didn't know I was using it for a calculated romantic campaign. My friends are split. Half think I'm goals.
Half think I need therapy.
My mom thinks it's sweet. My dad thinks it's concerning. We actually did go to couples therapy last month for unrelated communication issues, and when our therapist asked about our origin story, I told her everything. She stared at me for a full 30 seconds before saying, Wow, that's a lot to unpack. Is it bad? I asked. It's definitely manipulative, she said carefully. But it's also kind of impressive, in a deeply concerning way. Jake jumped in. She's a project manager in her professional life. She approaches everything like a project, including relationships. It's how her brain works. That doesn't make it less manipulative, the therapist said. No, Jake agreed. But she's been this way for our entire relationship. It's not like she tricked me and then became someone different. She's consistently been a person who plans and strategizes and researches. If anything, the wedding confession was the most honest thing she's ever done. The therapist looked at him. And you're okay with it? I mean, I married her after she confessed. So yeah, I'm okay with it. Even knowing that your early relationship was manufactured? Was it manufactured? Or did she just eliminate variables and stack the deck in her favor? We still had to actually connect. We still had to fall in love. She couldn't force me to love her. She just made sure I noticed her and gave us the best possible chance. I fell in love with him all over again, right there in therapy. The defense. Look, I know how this sounds. I know some people reading this are thinking I'm a sociopath or a stalker or a manipulative nightmare person. But here's my perspective. I didn't lie about who I am. I genuinely like hiking and indie music and environmental issues and soccer and the Trailblazers. Did I like all those things before I met Jake?
Some of them, yes.
Did I develop deeper interests in them because of him? Also, yes. But that's not lying. That's growing and exploring new interests because of someone you love. 2. I didn't force him to love me. I created opportunities for us to connect. I made myself visible in his life. But he still had to choose me. He still had to develop feelings. He still had to pursue the relationship. I didn't brainwash him. 3. Everything after the initial engineering was real. Yes, I orchestrated our meeting and early interactions. But our actual relationship, the conversations, the experiences, the connection, that was all genuine. He fell in love with the real me, not a fake version. 4. I came clean. I could have kept this secret forever. He never would have known. But I chose to tell him, publicly, in a way that gave him the chance to back out if he wanted to. I chose honesty. 5. Relationships require effort. Some people believe in fate and chance and letting the universe decide. I believe in taking control of your own destiny. I saw something I wanted, and I made a plan to get it. Is that really so different from any other goal-oriented behavior? I don't know. Maybe I am crazy. Maybe this is unhinged behavior that should concern everyone. But I'm married to the love of my life. We have a great relationship. We're happy. So maybe crazy works. The full truth. Okay, since I'm confessing everything, I might as well go all the way. The wedding vow confession wasn't the whole story. There are things I left out. Things that are even more calculated. Like the fact that I befriended his ex-girlfriend Melissa on a fake Facebook account to learn more about what went wrong in their relationship, so I could avoid making the same mistakes. Or the fact that I asked Tyler to specifically invite Jake to events and to mention to Jake that I'd be there, framing it like, Sophie's coming, it'll be fun, you should come too. Or the fact that I bought his favorite beer and just happened to have it in my fridge the first time he came over. Or the fact that I researched common relationship patterns and psychological studies about attraction and incorporated those findings into my approach. Or the fact that I practiced conversations in advance. Literally rehearsed responses to questions he might ask, so I'd seem effortlessly interesting and cool. I was running a full-scale romantic operation for 6 months. It was methodical. It was thorough. It was borderline obsessive. And it worked perfectly. Jake doesn't know about these extra details. The wedding confession covered the broad strokes, but not the full insanity of what I did. Should I tell him? Probably not. Some things are better left unsaid. Will I tell him? Maybe someday when we're old and can laugh about it. Or maybe I'll take it to my grave. Final thoughts. I posted this whole story in a few different places online looking for validation or judgment or just to see how other people react. The responses have been mixed. Some people say, I'm a genius, that I saw what I wanted and went after it with the dedication of an Olympic athlete. That modern dating is a nightmare and I simply took control of my own narrative. Some people say, I'm terrifying, that Jake should run, that this is manipulative abuse disguised as romance, that I'm a walking red flag. Some people say it's sweet in a weird way, that lots of people present their best selves when dating. I just did it more strategically. Jake's response when I told him I was posting about it online. Great, now the whole internet is going to think I'm married to a psychopath. But you are married to a psychopath, I pointed out. A hot psychopath, he corrected. There's a difference. I'm not sure what the moral of the story is. Maybe it's that love requires effort and strategy. Maybe it's that sometimes the ends justify the means. Maybe it's that I'm absolutely unhinged and got lucky that Jake thinks it's charming instead of terrifying. All I know is that I'm married to my soulmate, we're happy, and I'd do it all again. Well, maybe I'd leave out the wedding vow confession. That was a bit much, even for me. But everything else? No regrets. Call me crazy. Call me manipulative. Call me a romantic genius or a cautionary tale. I don't care. I got what I wanted. Update. Jake read this post. His response. You left out the part where you learned my coffee order and had it ready for me the first time I came to your place. Me? I thought that detail made me sound too stalkery. Jake. Babe, you confessed to stalking me in your wedding vows. The coffee thing isn't going to move the needle. He's not wrong. Also, he wants me to include that he thinks it's kind of hot that I wanted him that badly. His words, not mine. So there you have it. 3 years later, still married, still weird, still working. I stand by everything I did. Comments locked because people were getting judgy, and I have no regrets.